Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that talks with tomorrow's hoop stars. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today, I am joined by our Big Ten experts, Joey Bardack and Josh Tischler. And I want to welcome everybody back. We had a 2.5-month absence. Without going into major detail, over the last 12 months, my wife has had major surgery twice. I had it once. She also had another procedure, but she's dealing with two issues. I'm dealing with one. But even leading up to that, the reason why I'd say we haven't been consistent with the show and the website is just because in the 2 years leading up to the last 12 months, we've both been in a tremendous amount of pain. So it wasn't easy to work consistently, but we're back and we got Josh and Joey and their youth and their energy, and they're all healthy, and I'm relatively healthy at this point, and my wife is relatively healthy at this point, at least getting there. And today we also have Micah Parrish from Ohio State, fifth-year wing, who's been on a hot streak, is going to join us for an interview as well. So, and we're going to focus on the Big Ten and our college hoops notebook. So I'm going to jump right in. And before we dive into the Big Ten, I wanted to specifically talk about some of the games I attended during our absence, basically. I did get to go to some games. The first thing I went to was the Legends Classic which featured Texas, St. Joe's, Texas Tech, and Syracuse. That was right just before Thanksgiving, and Texas won the tournament. It was basically St. Joe's played Texas Tech and beat them, and Texas beat Syracuse, and then Texas beat St. Joe's, while Texas Tech beat Syracuse for the third place game. In terms of draft prospects, and you guys can throw in comments as we go along here, because I think was it you, Josh, that picked Texas Tech as one of your sleeper teams for the Final Four?
Yeah, they've been playing really well as of late.
Yeah, and but at that point, they really weren't. I mean, they weren't playing bad, but what? First of all, in that tournament, three players really stood out to me. Arthur Kaluma for Texas, St. Joe's Rashad Fleming, and Texas Tech JT Toppin. Now they're all very similar size, similar athleticism, and so forth. The interesting thing about Texas was they won it, and Trey Johnson in both games kind of was not doing much for the first 30 minutes of the game. Kaluma was carrying Texas, and then in the last 10 minutes, he would turn it on in both games. So one guy I was hoping to get a good feel for. Oh, and I should say J.J. Starling played really well for Syracuse, and got to talk to him a little bit in the locker room, and hopefully before the season's out, maybe we'll get him on the show. But Donnie Freeman, the other high 5-star freshman for Syracuse, he didn't overly impress me. And since then, he suffered a foot injury, and he's done for the season. So I'm wondering at this point, does Freeman come out? I mean, he was playing okay, but yeah, you guys have any thoughts on those four teams? I mean, St. Joe's was really looking good at that point, but they've been so inconsistent with their shooting. Eric Reynolds has been, some nights he'll put up 30, and some nights he'll go, 5 of 20 from the field. So any thoughts on those four teams?
I would like to say that I've been pretty disappointed in how Syracuse's play has been from the start, really. I looked to this team on paper before the season started, and I wasn't going to be, so impressed. I thought, they'd be in the middle of the pack, played well. I thought bringing in a guy like Eddie Lampkin from Colorado was going to do some good for them as a big center, but I think he's been quite disappointing for Syracuse, and just like everything that they've kind of built there so far for this team has been very disappointing. And just seeing these games, I saw they They lost to U Miami the other day, and that was a rough loss. They've got like 2 wins in the ACC, and I'm just not really too happy to see this from.
Actually, I think they have five wins in the
Yeah,
ACC.
no, I mean Miami they've got
Miami
two
only had
wins.
two. Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
yeah, and Syracuse is not much better with 5, and like it's rough to see. I'm not an Orange fan, but like I'd say like for your average Syracuse fans, it's pretty unbearable to watch. But I'm very happy to see how my Red Raiders are playing. I think Chance McMillan, that dude, absolute dog. He's been playing
Definitely.
so well for
Oh
them,
my
and
gosh. Has he ever? I mean, he went from being, I mean, he's just shot up our draft board
mhm,
because he's a senior. And the freshman,
yeah,
Christian Anderson, is looking really
hmm
good too. And the transfer from Minnesota,
Elijah Hawkins,
Elijah Hawkins, is just dishing
he's
out
been
assists
great.
left
Yeah,
and right, and he's shooting pretty well.
hmm
Yeah, the team looks really good.
yeah.
I didn't see their game against Arizona State, but yeah, up
It was
until
a
that,
close one.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was close. I
hmm
have I don't even know who won because I was hoping to watch it later. So I know it was very close. Um,
Yeah. I think, yeah. Oh, wow. They won in double OT.
ah,
Uh,
okay,
JT Topham, wow, 41,
41 points.
15 boards.
Yeah, you see now
He's great.
with Kaluma impressed me so much that he is now to me in that second round range.
hmm
Fleming to me is probably an early second round pick, maybe a late first rounder. But I
Yeah.
think JT Toppin, if he comes out, he's still only 19.
He's a young guy, and he's
Yeah,
got good length too.
yeah, and he's an excellent shot blocker, excellent rebounder, tough to stop inside,
hmm
developing a shot, athletic, defends. I actually think that he could be a top 20 pick if he
Yeah,
comes
I
out.
think so. I mean, the way he's playing like this, like I think like him, like I think Chance McMillan is a great shot to I see in the second round. And I would like to say like you brought up like Arthur Kaluma, like I always thought he had the potential when he was at Creighton. I thought he
Yes.
was a great player for them, for Coach McDermott. And like now I'm seeing, 13 points, 8 rebounds, like that's good length. He's a great defender. I could
Yes.
so yeah.
The thing about Kaluma was it didn't always play smart. And I'm not
Yeah.
seeing that at Texas. I'm not seeing the turnovers. I'm not seeing the bad
hmm
shots.
Yeah.
And so that's why to me, he's playing much smarter. And that's why that separates a lot of these guys. It separates them because, a
Yeah,
lot of them are
it's
athletic.
important.
They're all tall and a lot of them can shoot. And that's another thing. He's shooting pretty well. And probably the best of his career. So,
Yeah,
uh,
40% from 3. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's just a lot to like now that he's playing more under control.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw just before Christmas was Princeton defeat Rutgers in a nail biter. It was the last
Yeah, watch that
second
again.
shot, and Rutgers had a chance to win it on the last second shot of theirs. So it went down to the final seconds. Um, and I saw Rutgers again and on a good moment beat Illinois. And that, though, I will say Illinois' best players weren't really did not have good games. I mean, Illinois was just off that day. Kasparas Giaconis,
Jackie Sonis, yeah.
Giaconis, really did not shoot well that game. Tomislav Ivicic, by the way, it's now they want it pronounced Ivicic. Uh,
Okay.
People always said Ivicic, but now it's Ivicic. I got that straightened out. He didn't have a great game, and even Morez Johnson, the freshman who's moved into the starting
hmm
lineup, who's high energy player, all over the court type of guy. He had a so-so game. And the thing about Ivicic, he left I don't know, early in the second half with an ankle injury. He tried to return and couldn't go. So we all know, anybody who's watched Illinois knows that Ivicic is like pretty critical to Illinois. The one guy did have a good game and played as well as Ace Bailey, was Will Riley. And Will Riley has been on a tear of late. Now,
I
he's
know.
starting to look like a possible lottery pick. Um, And there's a lot of similarities between Will Riley and Ace Bailey. And the one thing I want to say about Ace Bailey, I know Rutgers has been a mess. Their supporting cast just wasn't there. That's why I didn't understand why they were in the preseason top 25. I just didn't get that. I mean, you were counting on two freshmen to carry a bunch of so-so college players. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I think like it's like you get like these two top recruits from the country, and I do think Coach Steve Kelly, I think he's a great coach. He's great, defensive minded coach. But you go out and get these two guys, and you don't really build a supporting cast around them, and like I feel like that's been a big problem all season.
yeah, I think if they could have kept Cliff Amore, this team, we'd be talking about them up there with Illinois, UCLA, and Maryland.
Yeah.
Probably, probably. But that's what they're missing. They're missing that third guy. And one thing I want to say about Ace Bailey, he is beautiful to watch when he's on. And, so many over the last 10, 15 years, I've heard so many analysts that made me start to pull my hair out. I am getting a little bald from people saying this. It's They say, "Oh, this guy looks like Kevin Durant. This guy looks like Kevin Durant," and I feel like punching him. Shut up! Nobody looks like Kevin Durant. Well, you know what? Ace Bailey does look like Kevin Durant. And but right now he doesn't drive the ball a lot, and that bothers me. He settles for jump shots a ton. I mean, he's so pretty, when he does his turnarounds and his step backs, or just rises above a guy that he's already got like 4 inches on. He's so smooth and so athletic, but I'm not crazy about his shot selection. I wish he would drive more, and he's really thin. I mean, like Durant, So that game against Illinois, I think he had 10 or 11 boards, but that's a rarity for him. At 6'10".
Yeah.
He really does play like a small forward or a shooting guard at 6'10". But I don't see the driving ability. Where Harper's been far more consistent. I think Harper is more ready for the NBA right now, but I think Bailey has more upside. And I really, it's going to all depend on what you're looking for there. In my opinion, what do you guys think? You've seen Harper and Bailey play enough.
I'm more favor of Dylan Harper. I agree with what you said. I think he's just more ready. The shot is better than I expected. He can drive. He's a solid passer. He can grab boards. Just the more I watch him, the more I kind of see Cade Cunningham, and like seeing where Cade is now versus like where he was at Oklahoma State. I see a little bit of Dylan Harper there. And yeah, I had the same issue, Rich, with Ace Bailey. He was settling for too many jumpers. Like the points were there, he was hitting them, but it looked like he was playing too hard. He was taking a lot of like fadeaways in the corner. They looked heavily contested. And like, yeah, he's hitting them.
Yeah. He'll go in deep in that corner, and he'll do like a step back or some kind of fadeaway, and it'll be contested by somebody who's not that much smaller than him. And for one, you're like surprised he doesn't step out of bounds. And for two, you're like, that's the best shot you can get with 20 seconds still on the shot clock.
Yeah, he takes a lot of jumpers. He hasn't really impressed me too much off the bounce. Just a lot of like awkward mid ranges. Yeah, I'd like to see him like maybe take his defenders on more one-on-one, maybe play a little bit more in the post, just kind of show off a little more versatility. Because when I see these shots, all I think is if you put Jaden McDaniels or someone like that on him, he's not making that.
Right, or he's going to have a hell of a hard time making it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other game I of note was I actually got to go to the shoot around before Yale and Princeton. I was a guest of Yale's coach James Jones, and he had me. I was invited to watch a shoot around, so that was fun. First time. That's usually reserved for TV people, or and team only and the TV people. But I got to participate in that or watch that, and Yale, man, I think most people thought Princeton was going to be the class because they got two pro prospects, especially Xavier Lee, a serious pro prospect. But man, Yale dismantled Princeton. Princeton is not playing the way we expected. In fact, at the press conference after the game, their coach said there's something wrong with his team. I mean, and he was intimating that he didn't want to discuss it, but I thought, is that guy's looking ahead to the pros? Is that guy's, thinking that he could get more NIL and they're going to transfer somewhere else? Because that's something that's hit the Ivy League that you never used to see. You used to see guys leave the Ivy League after 4 years. Now you're seeing them leave after their freshman season. That never happened in the Ivy League. But go on to Yale. Yale has smothering. They obviously don't have Danny Wolf this year. And so are they going to beat Auburn again? Probably not, because Danny Wolf's a special player. And we'll talk about him more later. But Yale plays stifling defense, and they have a guy I love to watch. His name is John Pulakidis. I think he's leading the Ivy League in scoring. I know he's about 19, 20 points a game. This guy is just a bucket. He doesn't have the speed to really separate himself, so he's constantly taking what looked to be difficult shots, but unlike Ace Bailey, he makes them at a better clip. And when he's open, if you leave this guy open, he's knocking it down from deep. He's a lefty. I think Polakidis, has a chance. I'm trying to see what year he's a senior. So I think he has a chance. I think he's going to get, some summer league invites, and I can't see him being drafted, but yeah. I think he's a very underrated player. So lastly, Joey, just the other day, went to see his school as the press, not as a fan. He was on press row for Ohio State, Washington. So Joey, what'd you come away from that game?
So yeah, I had a few major takeaways from that game. Players I was focusing on, obviously focusing more on the players that have draft potential. So I was looking at Great Osabor and Zoom Diallo from Washington, and for Ohio State, John Mobley Jr., Bruce Thornton, and Micah Parrish, who we went on to interview. I was really, really disappointed, honestly, with Great Osabor. I looked at him during warmups and like, wow, this dude is huge. And Ohio State's had front court problems. I'm like, this could really get out of hand. He could have a big game, but he had no hands. Like, he couldn't even catch the entry passes. He was getting stripped constantly. He finished the game with like 4 turnovers. He was missing easy layups and dunks. He just couldn't grab rebounds. It looked almost uncoordinated. So I was a little disappointed from that. Zoom Diallo, I was really conflicted with the whole game because he showed many.
I think a lot of people are, because first of all, when you look at him as a point guard, you're like, whoa, this guy got the body, and he's only a freshman,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a great build. He's 6'4", 180. I was really impressed defensively. He was locking up Bruce Thornton. Like, Bruce Thornton, great player. I'll get to him in a minute, but yeah, he was locking up Bruce Thornton. Very athletic, super fast. But I just wanted to see him create his own shot more. He was 6'4". He was playing against later in the game when Ohio State was like blowing them out. They had 6-foot Quez Glover on them, and I was like, just take him on, like finish over him. You're much taller.
Post him up.
Exactly. But yeah, he didn't really take defenders on a lot one-on-one. A lot of his points just came off of like cuts or kind of like loose balls. He was
when I've seen him, he's been drive, and the first game I saw him, when I saw him shoot, I was like, oh my God, this guy can't shoot worth a lick. Second time I saw him, he looked better, there was like a month or maybe a month and a half in between when I watched him. So I was like, okay, this guy is not as bad as I thought, but yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
You're good. But yeah, he wasn't even driving that much. I think he finished the game with like 5 field goal attempts. He had a decent mid-range shot because he had the height for it, but he wasn't taking it much. The touch wasn't great, but you could like see the signs for it. It was a lot of like, he has so much potential, but I just wanted to see more from him offensively. And then from the Ohio State side, John Mobley Jr. is one of the best shooters I've seen in college basketball in recent times.
Man, that guy can snap it off in a second. Not even a second, a split second.
It was ridiculous. And I really like Bruce Thornton too. I feel like he doesn't have superstar potential. He plays really smart. Like he's the captain for a reason. He's a veteran. He's a good passer. He gets rebounds. He's got a good shot. He does a good job. He's like a much bigger guard. I want to say over 215. So he does a good job of using his body. And like he had Diallo on him, and Washington has no other perimeter defense outside of Diallo. So he was doing a really good job of just swinging the ball to Mobley and Parrish, and those of them were knocking down their shots at a great clip. So I feel like Thornton could have very good like backup guard second round kind of potential, almost like a. I had made a note somewhere on. I had a note somewhere. It was kind of like a bigger Monte Morris, almost.
Yeah, yeah. And Bruce has one more year if he wants. So, and
Exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if he takes it. And I wouldn't be surprised next preseason, we're talking about him as maybe being player of the year. I mean, that's how good Bruce has been, I think.
Absolutely.
All right. So now we'll move on solely to the Big Ten. And I want to look back at our preseason predictions, which weren't bad. Some are cringeable. Some I don't know. Joey and I picked Michigan State to win the conference, Josh Indiana. And I remember early in the season, I said on the show, boy, I wish I would have picked Indiana to win the conference instead of Michigan State. Well, I'm glad. I should go back and edit that. I should go back and edit that.
You guys are on the right side of the spectrum right now.
Yeah. Now, where you guys really had me was I thought the Big Ten was only going to get 7 teams. You guys had 10, and that's what right now, ESPN is projecting 10 Big Ten teams in the field. So good on you there. Our player of the year, not looking good at all. Peyton Sandford hasn't really taken the leap that I expected and Joey expected. Jackson Shellstott for Oregon, it was Josh's pick, and he just started off so slow. He's been playing a little better of late, but still not seeing that consistency. So again, he didn't make the step that we thought. I will say, we had like a week or so in between where we did the Big Ten or maybe about 2 weeks before we did our season predictions. And I didn't put Peyton Sandford on my All-American team. I put Braden Smith. And to me, he's looking like player of the year. You guys thinking the same?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Just because of Purdue's success and how vital he's been, it's got to be Braden.
He's been tremendous.
Yeah. And again, we'll talk a little bit about Purdue a little later, but, I think I can remember when we were doing the previous show, I kept on saying this team's going to have struggle on defense.
I was with you.
Yeah. And, the guards are too small. They don't really have a shot blocker. And really, their big 7'3" or 7'4" center that was supposed to, be their rim protector went down like week 1 or game 1, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was game 1. Yeah.
So moving on to defensive player of the year, I don't know who's the leading candidate for this award in the Big Ten. Joey picked Owen Freeman, who's out for the year. Josh picked Ace Baldwin. I think he's still, in the discussion. And I picked Kobe Johnson, USC. I think he's still in discussion, but I don't know. Is anybody standing out in this area?
I think it honestly might be Braden Smith for this too. He's averaging like 2.5 steals a game, I think, last I checked.
Wow. That would be something. Freshman of the year, you guys picked Dylan Harper. I picked Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey's been leading the conference in scoring. I don't know if he still is, but for most of Big Ten play, he has been leading but I would say still Dylan Harper has been the better, more valuable player. I think you guys are going to get that right. And is there any other freshmen to come to mind? Well, Mobley, I suppose, would be in that discussion. Anybody else?
I mean, I think Jacques Jonas would be in the conversation.
Oh, right. Geez, yeah. Well, yeah, what am I thinking? Yeah, he should be. He should. And
Will Riley, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's. I think
Derek Queen even.
Derek Queen, yeah.
Oh, right. Jeez.
I think all those guys are in the conversation, but I think at the end of the day, it'll come down to Harper or Bailey.
Well, now that you're throwing out all those names, I kind of like Jakashonis myself. I just think his team has done better. I don't
Team
know.
success and player success.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of these awards are a combination. That's usually
Right.
the way it goes. So,
Mhm.
except for maybe defensive player of the year, I think they don't factor team success so much into that award. I could be wrong.
No, they don't. I mean, I wouldn't think. I mean, like they gave it to Ace Baldwin last year, and they didn't say
Right.
Penn State was a great team
No,
last year.
no, they
Right.
weren't. They weren't. All right. So now when we look at the Big Ten teams, I mentioned the 10 right now are being projected in the tournament by ESPN, and they are, and I'll read off the seeds: Purdue, a number 2, Michigan State, a 3 seed, Wisconsin, a 4, Michigan, a 5, Illinois, UCLA, and Maryland, all 6s, Oregon, an 8, Ohio State, a 9, and Nebraska. That's the one that surprises me. I know they've been playing better of late, but are they really a tournament team? What do you think, guys?
I don't think so. I don't know. I
Uh,
just like, I mean, the thing with the Big Ten is everyone's so in the mix. Like, I feel like most any team, aside from the few at the bottom, are like a good Big Ten tournament performance away from the tournament. So I feel like still so much is going to shift between now and March Madness. So I think Nebraska's just there because of where they are in the standings, but there's still a good amount of regular season left to play. There's still a whole Big Ten tournament. And I think there are some teams beneath them that I would trust to make a run in that tournament more than them.
I think everybody on that list is probably pretty safe, except for Nebraska and maybe Oregon. I mean, personally, I think Ohio State's better than Oregon. And Oregon's been somewhat of a disappointment to me.
yeah.
And I think other teams that are probably still in the mix would be, I mean, like if Nebraska got pushed out, I think they could easily be replaced by USC or even Indiana. I mean, Indiana is a team that we thought would be fighting for first place. We'll talk about them a little more down the road, but why don't we talk about I guess, well, first of all, before we get to Indiana, which of these teams, Big Ten teams, you could include someone who's not even projected to be in the tournament, do you think has Final Four potential? Start with you, Joey.
I have to go with Michigan State. In the words of my father, you never count out Tom Izzo. I think I think that like the combination at guard of Jaden Akins and Jace Richardson is just that's such a March Madness kind of guard duo. I feel like those are the kind of guys they get hot in the game, they put up 20 or 30, that's going to be tough to beat. Jace Richardson has been absolutely peaking at the right time. They have a lot of really solid forwards and centers. I was watching, I forget which game it was, but just every single loose ball, every single rebound, there were just like 3 7-foot Michigan State guys jumping at it. They have like Cohen Carr, they have Kohler, they have a lot of guys there that just hold it down
They have
defensively.
guards. They have so many guards that they can't even play
Yeah, so many
some of
guys.
them. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't know, just Izzo always turns it up in March. They just have a really strong identity, both offensively and defensively. They have Fears, who's been passing the ball pretty well. I always like Michigan State. And especially when they have solid guards that I trust, I'm even higher on them. And with Akins and Richardson, I definitely feel that this year.
What do you think of Josh?
I got two teams in mind. I'm also with Joey. I think Michigan State has been a tremendous team so far. On a little bit of a slump right now, losing 3 out of their last 4. But I don't think, when it comes down to it, Coach Izzo, he's chefing something up in the timeouts, making the plays. I think Jace Richardson has been a phenomenal freshman, been very underrated, had a great game against Oregon in front of his dad and then retiring his jersey. He had like 29. It was phenomenal to watch. And yeah, I even think the bigs have been playing really well. I think I was never a big Carson Cooper guy, but he's getting the job done. Getting some boards. Jackson Kohler. I think Trey Holloman's been a phenomenal point guard for them. So I think when it comes down to it, I think this team is the best team in the Big Ten, I believe, even past Purdue. And my second team that I have, and I'm really loving to see them because I think they can do really well, is Michigan. I think they've been tremendous. Trey Donaldson's been amazing for them. Danny Wolf was looking like almost a lottery pick for them. Vlad Golden has been great for them, big center for them. Roddy Gale. They won their last 5 in a row, and they just keep winning close games. I'm seeing, you were down in Purdue, at home, didn't look too good, and come down, they win by 2. At Indiana, that's a hard environment to play in, and you come down and get the win. Oregon, same thing, and it's important to get those close game
They
wins.
smacked Oregon.
How much? They won by 4.
Somebody smacked.
Yeah.
Was it Illinois?
They got smacked by Purdue at Purdue.
No, but I think the team I'm thinking of is Illinois recently beat up.
Okay. Oh yeah, they did. Yeah,
at Oregon, I think that was.
Yeah, it was at Oregon. Yeah. But I'm really loving to see what Coach May has done for them. I'm a big Dusty May guy. I think he's done a tremendous job with Michigan, and I can see this team in the Final Four.
I think that Purdue, Michigan State, and I agree with Michigan. By the way, we're disrespecting Purdue again, so now they're going to win the national championship.
Exactly.
But the thing about Purdue, I still think their lack of rim protection and those small guards. If you notice, when you look at Purdue's schedule, when they've played athletic teams with bigger guards that can pressure the ball, full court pressure, this has been an issue all during Braden Smith and Foster Loyer's tenure. You press Purdue, they can have problems. And those are the types of teams that have beaten Purdue. So I think the minute Purdue runs into a Southeastern Conference team, they might be in trouble. Michigan State can't shoot, and I don't understand it. They have so much talented guards, but most of them can't shoot very well. If they turn that around, I think collectively, in terms of number of in depth and in talent, they have it. But when you have one distinct weakness like shooting, that can be a killer in the tournament. Teams that can't shoot usually just have one night, one of those nights, and it could be in the first round, second round, whenever. Their shooting's just not going to come through, or they're just going to have a dismal night shooting and they're out. Michigan, on the other hand, is they lack a little depth. And the other thing that really scares me about Michigan, and I'm agreeing with all you guys, I think that these are teams that do have the potential to make the Final Four, but Michigan really turnover prone. And Danny Wolf, as well as he played, he sometimes can have 4 or 5 turnovers in a game. So that is scary. I'll tell you the team I like the best out of this group, and they're young. They only have 1 senior. But, man, in terms of, pro potential and everything, Illinois, man. I mean, they just have some great players. They're all young. They're all sophomores and freshmen. And so that will probably bite them in the ass. But I think if there's a team, I think the most talented team, and they too have some depth. So I said Michigan State probably has the most, but I think Illinois, even though Michigan State has more depth, I think really if you add it up in terms of talent, I think Illinois would have the edge. And that's the team I like. I know they've had some bad losses, but they've also had some impressive wins. And I think they have the most impressive resume. You look at Michigan State and it's like, who did they really beat? Things like that. And Michigan State just didn't play the killer schedule it normally does. I just like Illinois here. All right. So now, who has been for you guys in this? Again, this is any of the teams in the conference. Who's been the most pleasant surprise? I mean, the team that surprised you the most. And I'll just give you my answer, and I'm going to say it's Purdue. I thought Purdue would make the tournament, but I didn't think they were going to be a 2 seed. I thought they'd be more like a 9 seed. So, kudos to them. What I thought would hurt them hasn't really hurt them. But yeah, so Josh, what are you thinking here?
I agree with Purdue. They've been pleasantly surprised, I think. Braden Smith looked like almost like the best player in the country, bona fide All-American. And the team that's really surprised me, and I think it's every year with this team. And again, I think it comes down to coaching, but I think Wisconsin, John Tungy has been a tremendous player for them, a complete shock, coming back, from injuries last year, and he's, averaging 18 a game. I believe also John Blackwell has made that jump, that sophomore jump, even though his shooting splits have gone, a little down, but, he's shooting more, he's taking more shots. And, this team, as always, they live and die by the 3-ball. And it's really going to come down to that in March. I think this team has a lot of potential, their shooting ability, and, you need that to be successful in March. So, Greg Gard is in a good position here. I think they're going to continue winning games with their 3-ball, and kind of excited to see how this Wisconsin team's going to do.
Yeah. How about you, Joey?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I like both y'all's picks. Purdue, I said if Purdue was going to step up, Braden Smith's going to need to be able to be like a true scorer and not just like a 13 a game and passer, and he's done that. And that Kaufman Wren was going to need to step up and play like the quasi Edey role, and really he's done that. Putting up 19 a game this season is not something I expected at all. And then Josh, I like the Wisconsin pick too. I did not expect Tanji and Blackwell to be scoring at the rate they're scoring. Wisconsin's always solid. I expect them to be an 8 and 9, kind of everyone averaging around 10 a game, hitting some threes. But those two guys really stepped Wisconsin up, made them dangerous. For my pick, though, I got to go with my team, not Ohio State, my other team, Maryland Terrapins. My sister went there, so I've been rooting for them for years. So I was cautiously optimistic going into the season. I'm like, okay, we have this big center coming in, big touted freshman. We have a transfer guard who's pretty good at Fairfield, and we have 2 wings who can shoot, because that was one of our biggest issues last year, was that Maryland didn't really have any good shooters. We had the guard play from Gillespie. We had 2 solid bigs, but we didn't have any shooters. So this year we go out, we replace the guard. Gillespie's been really solid, hitting shots when he needs to, been a good passer. Derek Queen's been everything we hoped as basketball fans. I mean, I did not expect him to be this dynamic of a scorer. Like, he was taking on guys from like the 3-point line, hitting them with between the legs spin moves. I did not see that coming. And then Miguel and Rice have been so good as solid wing players. I was at the Maryland Ohio State game doing a broadcast, and I mean, Rodney Rice just caught fire. It was just mid-range after mid-range after mid-range. They were contested too. There was just nothing Ohio State could do. He was hitting them. Miguel's been really solid from down 3 or from 3. He had the game winner against Indiana, I think it was. Those guys have been huge. And Queen's been amazing. Maryland, I was rooting for him, but I didn't expect them to be this good. So it's definitely been a pleasant surprise.
And Julian Reese has been phenomenal too. And
absolutely.
I think that's the one thing. I mean, we knew Miguel was solid. We thought Rice, even though he really hadn't had a lot of playing time, being a high recruit, was going to be solid. Gillespie, we knew he had been stellar for Belmont. So, but the question was, how do Queen and Reese, mesh together? And they've made it work.
Absolutely.
Another thing about Wisconsin, getting back to them, another player, Tunji surprised me. I mean, I even said, before we took the break on the show, that I didn't think Tunji was gonna be able to keep it up, and he's proven me dead wrong. I mean, he's playing the best basketball of his career, not even close. You can't. To what he's done anywhere else. And he's at the highest level he's ever played at, at least this amount of minutes. So, but the other guy I'd like to mention is Nolan Winter, power forward, center, stretch guy. He's played really well, and he's only a sophomore. So Yeah, he's been another one to step up for Wisconsin. All right. So most disappointing team. We all might have the same answer here. But we'll start with you, Josh, because I think we're just all going to agree with you.
Yeah. It's been a rough couple months watching, the Indiana Hoosiers and just like how everything has gone down, from the coach to the players. It's just disappointing to see. You invested so much time and money into a program, and you get all these big transfers: Miles Rice, Umar Ballo, Kanan Carlisle, Luke Goody, and you look at all right. You come out preseason polls, you're in the rankings, and it just seems like nothing's clicking. There's nothing that's working for this team. It's just defensively, they look all out of sort. Offensively, it seems like there's one scheme, get ball down to the post, try and let him do something, let him create for himself. And, there's not really a guy that okay, I can go get a bucket real quick. I was really hoping it'd be Miles Rice, but he's been very disappointing to see. And just like how the whole scheme of the Indiana offense has been awful to watch. Even going to these games, I remember going to the Indiana Illinois game, and that was a pretty rough watch to see. Hearing all the students yelling "Fire Woodson, Fire Woodson." It's
right.
In my head I was joining in, but I just thought it was a little too disrespectful for my taste. I feel bad for Coach Woodson. I think he's
Well, yeah. I mean, the guy was a star for the school. Yeah, I don't think you do that. I think what happens on the court speaks for itself. You don't have
it speaks on exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And
how about Kanan Carlisle, who we thought would be a walking bucket, who's just not fit in at all, and
whatsoever.
He seems to be one of these guys that needs the ball in his hands, and they're really playing him as a 2, and that's just not working.
No, it's not. And like he can't find a shot either. Every time, he's an open shot, it's a good look. And, it's, he's not a great shooter. I haven't seen it from him all year. And, I think he's a pretty good defensive player. It's hard to, take him off the court sometimes, but now he's not even in the rotation. Now they brought it in senior guard like Anthony Leal, who's been playing probably the best basketball of his career, and like he's
right. Yeah, I mean,
he's really trying.
And this is
it's
Anthony
like kind
Leal
of
is somebody who hasn't even like averaged 5 points a game.
Exactly. You see him; he's in the starting lineup now. It's like you brought in all these guys, and like obviously you got to make a change. But it's like Anthony Leal. Like
I follow thousands of basketball players, and when I turned on an Indiana game and he was in the starting lineup, I'm like, who the hell is Anthony Leal?
Yeah, it's like you only know him because he's from Bloomington, and like I'll give him credit where it's due. He's been playing some pretty good ball. He's really really trying out there. Defensively hustling.
He's been a glue guy.
Yeah, glue guy, and also Luke Goody has been definitely been one of our best players.
What did I tell you after I watched the Gonzaga Indiana lose to Gonzaga? I said Luke Goody needs to be in the starting lineup.
Yeah, he does.
And Ballo and the other big guy can't be in the line. Renault can't be on the court at the same time.
And it's it's ridiculous because they clog too much. And like now they just started last game when they beat Michigan State. Renew came off the bench and had a great game. He had like 19 and 11. Ballo had a great game, and like you could see there's glimpses and potential. All these games that they've lost. Well, most of them have been pretty close games. The Michigan game was very close, all coming down to the wire. The Maryland game, they lost on a buzzer beater. Even at Purdue, like that was a great game. Probably the best game I've seen them play all year, and yet it's still short. And I hope this win now at Michigan State can really boost the morale of the team, and
I was
finally
so
get
happy
some wins
they
going.
won that. I didn't want to see Bobby Knight's record being broken.
I know, yeah.
Bloomington. I know it's inevitable that's going to be broken, but I think that would have been a huge embarrassment for Indiana being a victim at home.
I know. Yeah, I agree. And that was at Michigan State, the win that they had, which was a big win.
Oh, was it? I thought it was at home. Mm-hmm. Even so, it still would have been an embarrassment.
Even so, yeah. And like, so I'm glad, that's a little, team morale there, some boost for the fans. But overall, it's been a pretty disappointing season. And yeah.
All right. Joey, do you have a different pick?
I I don't want to pile on anymore, but Indiana was my pick. So I guess instead I'll talk about two of the teams that weren't really projected to be that good by anyone but me, but that I was still wrong about. And that's Iowa Northwestern. There's a little segment where I just take the L. I thought that I thought their supporting cast would be able to step up more. I thought Sanford would make that step into,
Both
20 point per
Sanford
game
boys.
territory.
His
Yeah.
younger brother too, you expected bigger things from him.
Yeah, I thought, we'd get a little bit more scoring from Thelwell. I thought Traore even maybe, but it was just kind of Freeman, Sanford, and Dix against the world, and that just wasn't going to work. So yeah, the supporting cast hasn't really done anything, and Sanford and Freeman, great players. Freeman, I still think has all the potential in the world. Sucks that he got injured, but they can't do it all themselves. And then Northwestern,
They're
yeah.
just snake bit. That team's snake bit.
Yeah, the Barnheiser, similar situation. Barnheiser getting hurt kind of makes my prediction look a little bit better because it's like, oh, maybe if he would have stayed healthy, could have gotten hot. But Martinelli has been great. Barnheiser is great. Leach was solid overall, but same thing. I thought Barry would take a step forward. I thought Nicholson would take a step forward. KJ Wyndham, the freshman, I thought maybe he'd get them some buckets off the bench, but same thing. I kind of trusted the main guys too much, and the supporting cast just kind of fell off.
Right. All right. So we already kind of touched on player of the year, newcomer of the year. I suppose newcomer of the year we didn't. And I think my vote would go to Danny Wolf. And I need to make another correction here that I said in the preseason. And I wasn't, I really liked Danny Wolf's game last year in our brackets. I picked Yale to beat Auburn a lot because of Danny Wolf, but also I knew Yale had great shooters and also could play tough perimeter defense. But the one thing I said on the show, which was, and I would love to interview him, and we're going to try, is did he lose weight or did he focus on the off season on his footwork? Because I don't remember. I saw him in person twice last year, and I don't remember him being able to handle and drive like he does. I knew he could pass, and I knew he could shoot, and I knew he could rebound, and I knew he could block shots. But this guy is, running full court and swatting passes, blocking shots, after sprinting full court. And he's getting the ball at the top of the key and going between his legs and behind his back and driving, past, players that are smaller than him. I just saw him do that the other night. I forget who was guarding him on Purdue. And he either went behind the back or between the legs, and he drove by a smaller guy. So I either Danny Wolf changed his body a lot and really worked on his ball handling, or I just didn't see him at his best. At Yale, he was more post up, with some pick and pop stuff. But for Michigan, for at least a third of the time, maybe more, maybe half of the time, he's their point guard. Trey Donaldson too. So that's the other thing I was going to say about Michigan when we was talking about them. I love Michigan, and I really do think, like you said, do have potential. But Danny Wolf and Trey Donaldson are their point guards, and they're both starters, and they really haven't had anybody emerge to be a good backup point guard. And it seems like when Wolf or Donaldson, or if both are off the court, Michigan can really struggle. But Trey Donaldson's played well for Michigan. But so I think the newcomer of the year, if you're not going to include freshmen, should go to Danny Wolf. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big Danny Wolf fan too. I think he's been tremendous in the Dusty May system. I wouldn't say I had doubts going into the year, bringing in Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, two guys, but it's a way better situation than Balo and Renew because Danny Wolf can stretch out the floor. Even Vlad Golden can do that as well. he's got a little shot going. So, and bringing it in from Yale, he's the Ivy League Player of the Year last year, and he's really
No, he
exploded
wasn't. No,
into
he
it now.
wasn't.
I
Cade Pierce
wasn't.
was.
Oh,
Cade Pierce was a
okay.
Princeton, but he was
And
like choice 1B.
sure. 1B. Okay, gotcha. And it's been tremendous to see like how he's kind of just like blossomed as the player he is now. Even though the turnovers are a bit. There's still some room for improvement for sure. But like I think I'm really loving to see what he's done for Michigan, and the sky's the limit for him.
What do you think, Joey? Now we're not counting freshmen here, which I don't even know if they have a newcomer award in the Big Ten, but we're picking one here that not including freshmen. So I guess we could put Ivasic in that category because they classified him as a sophomore.
Wow.
But yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, I think there are some other names you could throw out there. You could maybe make a case for Golden because he's scoring a little bit more than Wolf.
Yes.
You could maybe even make a case for Gillespie putting up 15 and 5.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's Wolf. I mean, he is the most vital piece to one of the best offenses in the Big Ten. Just he always comes up in the big moments. I don't even have a player comp for him because I really can't think of a player that I've seen with his size, but also his speed, athleticism, his handles. I mean, I've been seeing the clip where he had like the fake, like behind the back into like a step back 3 against Oregon. I can't scroll through Instagram or Twitter without seeing that video.
That was filthy, man.
Oh yeah. So he's just been huge for their offense. I was watching highlights from, I think it was the game against UCLA. And he just turned it up towards the end of the game, and I haven't seen anyone be able to hold him one-on-one on the drive.
Yeah, it's been impressive. And so, the first thing, if we ever do get Danny Wolf on the show, the first thing I'm going to apologize for saying he had slow feet because he has anything but slow feet. But I think it was just because Yale used him in the post a lot more, and I just didn't see his potential. And kudos for Michigan for seeing that potential and knowing that they could play him and Golden together. Not only do they play them together, they use them in the pick and roll a ton. And it's almost impossible to stop because Danny Wolf can see over just about anybody. And he's such a good passer that he's just constantly feeding Golden for these easy shots. And what a pairing it's been. Go ahead.
I was going to say also what's crazy is, he's playing outside in the perimeter on offense. He is the second most assists per game of anyone on the team. But then defensively, he's averaging 10 rebounds a game. He's averaging a block and a half a game. Like he's totally switching up where he's playing on the court. And he's, I thought with Wolf playing more on the perimeter, like, and Golden being the big center he is down low, Golden will be dominating the rebounds, the blocks. But Wolf has been beating him in those statistics too. He's really doing it all.
Right. So the one player that we've talked about a ton, but the one Big Ten player we haven't talked about that I think deserves some love, and that is playing Dawson Garcia, playing on Minnesota. Yeah. God bless him. Minnesota's actually won some games lately that have surprised me. But Dawson Garcia's this is a guy who was a 4 or 5 star when he came to Marquette. Had a disappointing one-year stint at North Carolina his sophomore season, and has been at Minnesota for the last 3, but he's putting up career numbers. Listen to this. And this guy, too, is Danny Wolf's size. He's 6'11", 230. So he's averaging 20 points a game. He's averaging 7.5 rebounds a game, 2 assists per game, and 0.8 steals and 1 block per game, and only 1.5 turnovers per game. Shooting splits are lovely. 50% from the field, 37 from deep, and 75 from the free throw line. Dawson Garcia, if he was on a winning team, would be in the discussion for player of the year, or at least if they were around 500 in the conference. But I think Minnesota is probably ultimately going to finish in last place. So any comments on Garcia or any other players we haven't mentioned to this point?
I just wanted to say I'm glad you brought him up. When I was doing my research for this episode, I made a note when I was doing Player of the Year, I had Braden Smith, and then I put in parentheses like Braden Smith if record matters, Dawson Garcia if it doesn't, because he's been tremendous. He's just held down by the fact that Minnesota has no help whatsoever. Um, yeah, not really much more to add. It's just a great player in a horrible situation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How
I
about?
will say,
Go ahead.
sorry. I will say, even though my Hoosiers, have been pretty disappointing, I will say Umar Bala has had a pretty good season. I think he's, shooting splits. He's has best shooting splits his whole career basically, and he's averaging 14 a game, almost a double-double, averaging almost 10 rebounds, and a big presence in the paint. The shot blocking is there still, and at times he does get into foul trouble, but like even so, I think he's done a pretty solid job for the Hoosiers and really trying to do a lot for them, for the team.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go ahead, Joey.
Just one more name I wanted to throw out there real quick is Evan Freeman. Freshman last year, came in this year. We were expecting a big jump in points per game, and he got injured, but he's there now, putting up like 16, 17 a game, grabbing rebounds, blocking shots. Injury ended the season, but he's only a sophomore. I think he could become scary in the next few years.
Yeah, I think he's he's already pretty high on our draft board, not in the top 100, but like maybe I don't know, maybe around 120, somewhere in there. So yeah, this is definitely suspended his development, and I think he'll be back next year. I'd be very surprised if he turned pro. I will say, we haven't talked about Coach of the Year yet. While we're on Iowa, I think Fran McCaffrey, I said this in our preseason episode, might be on the hot seat. I think he's definitely on the hot seat now. I think Fran McCaffrey is an acquired taste, and it's not for everyone. And I mentioned, some of the quality of players that this team has had in the past, especially the Garza and the Murray, Murray twin or Murray boys all on the same team, and they couldn't get it done. And so, yeah, and this year's team wasn't as talented. I think McCaffrey's personality is going to make it hard for him to hit the portal like other coaches. I don't think he's as likable. And I think I would not be surprised if Iowa moves on. But who would be your Coach of the Year pick, Josh?
For me, it's got to be Dusty May. Coming in, first year, last year was very disappointing for Michigan. Totally, I think they had a total of 8 wins last year, and you bring in, pretty successful guy. Dusty May brought a great FAU team to the Final Four. He signed that big extension with them, and then he came over to Michigan this year, and I think he's done a tremendous job with Michigan, bringing over all these players, and really buying into his system. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to culture for these teams, man. And you see it like the same teams coming up, Purdue, Matt Painter, tremendous coach, Tom Izzo, Greg Gard, all these guys, you think every year they're going to somehow disappoint you or, be in the average, but yet again, they're still playing great basketball, and it's really coming down to coaching. And I think Dusty May's done a tremendous job. Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf, Trey Donaldson, Roddy Gale. I think all these guys have been tremendous for them. And he's my Coach of the Year.
How about you, Joey?
Yeah, I was really debating between Dusty May and one other guy. I really wanted to give it to Dusty May, but I'm going to go with Kevin Willard from Maryland. When he first came in, Maryland was kind of a train wreck. This was after the Anthony Cowan, Jalen Smith era, and they were just a mess. But Maryland fans really believed in Kevin Willard. He'd had a lot of great success at, was it Seton Hall before?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
We knew it'd take a few years, and it's really working now. It's a really well-built team. He went out and got the wings they needed. He wasn't afraid to move Deshaun Harris-Smith out, back to the bench where he probably should be given his inefficiency last year from 3. And I really like what he's done in the front court with Julian Reese and Derek Queen. Those guys play together about as well as any 2 front court players I've seen in college in a while. They just move the ball well. It's not like ISO post ball. Like they are constantly passing, they are constantly like switching in the pick and roll. It's just a really well orchestrated team. And they've just the way they've risen this year, not a lot of people expected them to be this high. So I would have to go Kevin Willard.
Right. Man, I think this is a 5-coach race right now. I mean, Dusty May at Michigan talked about that a lot, and he's got the team at top of the conference. Purdue, Matt Painter. We didn't think they have a ton of talent. I still don't think they have a ton of pro talent. And, he's right behind Michigan. Then you have Wisconsin, who we didn't think much of at all. And they're right there toward the top of the conference with Greg Gard. And then, of course, Kevin Willard, we just talked about with Maryland. We didn't, I still don't think Maryland has great depth. Their starting 5 is nice, but, he's getting a lot out of a lot of guys that were kind of, so-so players, average, maybe above average. And also Brad Underwood. That team is so young. How many young teams have we seen, fall flat on their face with this kind of youth? And he's gotten these guys to play really, really well. So right now, if I'm voting, I give it to Dusty May because Michigan's the first place. But ask me a few weeks from now when when the season's over. Yeah. And, the national coach of the year could come out of this group too.
True.
But all right. So most disappointing player. And Josh will be surprised by my answer. And Joey knows my answer. So maybe I should start. And I am going to say Omar Ballo. And
Okay.
now maybe I shouldn't put this all on Ballo because maybe it's the situation he's in. As I said, I don't think he and what's his face? Renault should be playing together. I think, and honestly, I think Ballo can be such a defensive problem. He's for his size, he's not an elite shot blocker. I mean, he is getting a career high 1.5 per game, but a lot of guys playing the minutes he does, over 30 minutes a game would probably have 2 to 2.5 per game. He can't shoot. He can't shoot from the free throw line. For his career, he's 57%. This year, he's 59%. He doesn't make a 3. I don't think he's ever made a 3 in his career. And I think he looks heavier this year than he did at Gonzaga or Arizona. And sometimes I see him walking down the court. And sometimes I strain and I'm almost sure I see a hot dog in one hand and a beer in the other. Okay. Omar, Joey and I talked about this. I don't know his family situation. I know, he's not originally from this country. He's from Mali. Maybe. And I just said to Joey, I was thinking out loud, and this is all conjecture, but I'm wondering, maybe if he came from like really, poor background, maybe what he's getting in NIL, which I think is like $1 million a year, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So maybe that's just like for him, is kind of like taking out the edge to stay in shape and to play defense and to improve. But the Omar Ballo I see is the same Omar Ballo I saw 2 years ago at Arizona. There's no improvement. And I think he's actually, yes, his raw numbers look good, like 65% from the field, 14 points per game, and almost 10 rebounds per game. But he's been doing that pretty much for the last 3 years. And so nothing's changed. I don't think he plays well with Renault. And I think he can be a defensive liability. And I don't think he's really, I just don't think the effort is there. And I say that by just looking at his body. So, yeah. And like I said, maybe this isn't all his fault. Maybe maybe Mike Woodson should be, maybe Mike Woodson should have been on him all this time to get him in better shape. And then when he wasn't playing well, bench his ass and say, we're going to play Renault. And yeah, but I really think, I don't think,
I will say that there's definitely some great points, Rich, that you bring up. I do think at times that he can get very frustrated at the situation, and a lot of these games the team is down. You're down a lot of points, and you're trying to claw your way back into getting into these games, and like you get all the way back, and then you lose by 3 or 4 points, and like that gets to him. I see it. He fouls out. I see at the Purdue game. I think they come down, they hit a 3. IU's down like 2 points. Miles Rice he goes to the rim, takes an awful shot, hoping to look for a foul. And Umar Ballo, he's getting on his case. He's yelling at Miles Rice, and he fouled out, and he got super upset about the situation. And I definitely agree that at times it doesn't look like he's trying as much, and like a little lazy on the defensive end, defensive rebounding. But I will say that the offensive scheme shouldn't be built around him. It's
Right.
a lot of feeding him down, and that's not his game.
See, that's one thing. That's one thing Arizona didn't do. They didn't make him the focal point. They never. No one's ever made him the focal point. Because there was always Tubelis or Caleb Love at Arizona. Always somebody who was really the main scorer. Indiana doesn't have that guy. At least
they don't have that.
Now.
They don't, and they look to Ballo to see if he can be that guy, and he can't. And that's not. They're looking to see. We've had success with centers in the past. They look at TJD. They ran the whole offense through him. Kalel Ware, they ran the offense through him. But this is not the guy that you can do that with.
No.
And but for my most disappointing player, it's an IU guy actually, and I gotta go with Miles Rice. I was pretty excited.
You were. I can remember after the first couple of games.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I thought he was a great player last year for Washington State, freshman of the year. And I've been I never, he was never a great shooter or but I'm not even seeing, the way he would attack to the rim that was his thing. That's how he got all those, he averaged 15 a game last year.
Right.
And, getting to that free throw line. And I'm not seeing that this year. He's settling for these jumpers that, I've never seen before. It's not his game. And he likes to play a fast-paced game, and for IU, that's not their game. Like I'm saying, the focal points, it's Umar Ballo, and again, part of that is the offensive scheme. It's not built for a guy like Miles Rice, and the shooting splits, they're down. He's turnovers, 2.5 turnovers a game. He's very inconsistent. One game he'll have a decent game, the other game he'll have 0 points. And I'm not really seeing a lot from him as a point guard. He's very indecisive out there. And I hope these next couple of games, that Michigan State win, that can really boost his morale and get the team going. But he's my disappointing player.
How about you, Joey?
Yeah, I had 2 guys from my team as well. I went with Michi Johnson and Aaron Bradshaw. Michi Johnson, I had higher expectations for him than I know you did, Rich. But even so, he's been disappointing. He shot 35% from the field in the games that he did play. He was a turnover machine. We knew he was a very high risk, high reward players. We knew there were going to be games where he puts up 7 points on 2 of 9 shooting, and games where he's 5 turnovers. But then with that, you also were supposed to at least have the games where he gets hot from 3, puts up 20 plus, is getting the team hyped up and all that. But there was just all of the bad, none of the good. And he hasn't even been with the team the last few months. And honestly, we've been playing much better now that he's out. And I don't want to get too much into it because I don't exactly know what the reasons are as to why he's out. But he just, given the expectations at the start of the year versus where we are now, definitely more disappointing. And similarly, Aaron Bradshaw, coming from Kentucky, just such a highly recruited player, and he was also away from the team for a little bit. And even now that he's back, he's getting outplayed by Devin Royal. He's getting outplayed by Sean Stewart. He's getting outplayed by Evan Mahaffey, honestly. The 6'6", backup wing is averaging more blocks than him. And, Bradshaw, he's been playing a little bit better as of late. He had a nice game against Washington, hit a few threes, had a few nice, plays down low, some blocks, some rebounds. But all in all, given the recruitment, the hype from Kentucky, and then just what he showed at Ohio State, him being out for a little bit, and now him coming back is just not at all what we expected.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Sean Stewart, and Amon Bradshaw were both 5-star, high 5-star. I could tell you, if you're curious, in the collective rankings, which we chart recruiting rankings, Bradshaw was 4th in his class. Stewart was 17th. Okay. Ohio State has a height problem. And for them to go anywhere, there's going to come a day where these guys got to step up. Now, both of them are athletic, especially Stewart, but neither of them have a lot of girth to them. So I'm worried about them being overpowered by, people like Bala or players like that they'll run into in the tournament. So they are key. I really think key to Ohio State's success. So, but yeah, I agree. All right, so we're going to go through the injury updates. I'm not going to list every injury in the Big Ten. I'm just going to talk about a few. Trey White remains out. He had Illinois has been the flu has gone through their team, and Trey White has really been kind of hit hard by it. Didn't play for the last few games and still remains out. But the good news is he should be back sooner or later. It's been a tremendous, Ty Rodgers redshirted for Illinois this year, and he's basically filled those shoes. It's been a tremendous rebounder for them and defender, can hit a shot. So, yeah, and Illinois has still been cruising with him. Jack Davis has been filling in for him and been doing a nice job. So, as we mentioned a couple times, Owen Freeman, the big-time center for Iowa, out for the season with a finger injury. They also played their last game without Cooper Koch, freshman, and Drew Thilwell, who's been playing really well, transfer guard. Both of those guys missed the last game, too. Nebraska, Burton Gel, didn't play in Nebraska's last game and is questionable for Sunday's game with an ankle injury. Nebraska needs him. Nebraska doesn't have a lot of depth. I will say Burton Gel hasn't had the season I thought he would. For Nebraska, he's been good, but he's not been great. But he's only a sophomore, so we'll see. The team that's really been hit hard is Northwestern, second year in a row. They lost Brooke Barnheiser, who's a pro prospect, was really having a good year, out. And then they lost point guard Jalen Leach, I think the same week, out for the year. Northwestern really didn't have depth. I mean, the last thing Northwestern could afford to do is lose 2 key players, especially their best player in Barnheiser. In terms of Michi Johnson, my source tells me, and Joey, I think, can confirm this, Michi Johnson is taking classes at Ohio State. He left the team, but never made a formal announcement about it. So Ohio State doesn't expect him to play this year, but it is a possibility. So Michi has not indicated that he wants to play, but I get the feeling that if he asked to play and under certain conditions, he'd probably be a backup, that he would be allowed back on the team. And that would be, I think, a boon for Ohio State, because I think if you take the pressure off Michi, you use him as your second team point guard, shooting guard, and I think he and Bruce Thornton didn't fit well together. Michi needs the ball in his hands. Bruce needs the ball in his hands. Michi probably more so. And Michi was just turning the ball over a lot and not shooting at a good clip, but he's never been a great efficient scorer. He's been more of a volume scorer. But anyway, right now, He's at Ohio State. He's a student. He can come back, but they don't think he will. One player who was lost for the season was Emmanuel Ogbole for Rutgers. He was really the only true center on this team. Big body. I think he's about 6'11", about 250, 260, very muscular. He wasn't playing great, but as I said, being the only true center and probably the only real shot blocker on the Rutgers roster, they really need him. They're very vulnerable now to lose the battle on the boards. They're very vulnerable to having people score on them in the paint. I think we saw that, in the loss to Iowa, who I believe hadn't won a road game all year until they went to Rutgers and win. And Rutgers is not a team that's, no matter what their record is not a team that is used to losing at home. And Iowa, pretty much a perimeter scoring team, got a lot of their points from just driving to the basket because there's nobody there to stop them. So yeah, the other key injury I'll talk about is USC Terrence Williams II. He's a big wing, and he was off to a really good start for USC. He's been out for a while, actually, but he's a senior. I don't know if I haven't heard any updates, but USC is a team that could use some more outside shooting. So if he comes back, like we said, I think USC is fighting there with Nebraska and a couple other teams for that last spot in the Big Ten to get an attorney. He could be a difference maker. All right, so we're going to move on and talk about Mike Woodson stepping down. And so, Josh, I'm going to let you run with this and tell us what you know, and
Yep.
I will, and then we could talk about, when we get down to item C, we can discuss that as a group, but run with the stories you know.
Yeah, so I think it was about like a week ago. They came out and say that Mike Woodson is actually going to be stepping down and retiring from coaching and will not be the coach next year for Indiana University. And what I got from that is, obviously the recent struggles for the team. A lot of fans, I'm sure a lot of donors aren't very happy with how the team has gone. And I really think they gave him a choice in a sense. So in the sense of I like to, in quotations, stepping down. It was more of a sense of we'll probably let you go, or you can step down on your own terms, which I think that's what Scott Dolson, the AD for them, brought to Mike Woodson. And I think it's a necessary move for this program. I definitely think there was some success for the team. Been to the tournament, twice. The last 2 years has been definitely a struggle for IU, but there was never really that jump or getting over that hump for any of these teams. Remember 2 years ago they had the best team. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Miller Kopp, Trace Jackson Davis, and even that team, they lost in the round of 32. And it's going to come down to coaching. And I do think, Mike Woodson definitely had some highs, but, this has definitely been a real low this season, watching how the team has been, just like how everything has gone. It's been a real shame to watch because there's a lot of talent, I believe, on this team.
Yep.
And you invest so much money into a program. It's like, it's at times it gets a little unbearable to watch. So with, Mike Woodson leaving after this season, there's been speculations of who's going to be the possible candidate. The first one's already been turned down. They mentioned, I knew it was going to be a long shot, but he was never going to come over. It was Brad Stevens, the GM of the Boston Celtics. I'm scrolling through Twitter. Everyone's like, oh, Brad's coming, he's going to save the day. And I'm thinking myself, why would a successful general manager of the reigning NBA champions, leave the position to end up working for this, which is it's a hellish job, I would say, for to be the Indiana coach.
Unless you love teaching. And obviously Brad Stevens is in love with teaching, or he wouldn't have moved out of coaching in the first place.
Exactly. So, and I definitely think there's some very possible candidates. Already there's been talk of Dusty May possibly leaving Michigan. He had a press conference about the talks of him going to Indiana and leaving Michigan. And I wouldn't say he gave there was no or yes in that scenario. It was kind of cryptic of what I understood of how he spoke about the situation. Um, would I be surprised that he would leave Michigan? A little bit. From the amount of success that he's already having with the program, and just see how like everything's built, it's building blocks for this program. I don't see him really leaving Michigan in that situation. So there's been talks about that, but there's other possible candidates as well. They talked about TJ Otzelberger from Iowa State, who I think is a tremendous coach. I think he built a great, a struggling program in Iowa State, and he's built them into one of the best teams in the country. And it's looking at Greg McDermott from Creighton. I think he's done a tremendous job with Creighton as well. Dennis Gates has done a great job with Mizzou. I think a real underrated look for me would be Will Wade from McNeese. I think he can really, they can look at him. He's had success wherever he's gone. I think he's done a pretty solid job this year, and I'm pretty excited to see how the whole hot seat, how the whole coaching board goes on, and because they really, I think in the last 50 years is the most important decision they have to make for this program if they want to see. So they've got a lot of options. I'm sure there are people calling about this job. It's probably one of the most coveted jobs currently for coaching. Indiana, there's historically a great program.
Florida State's open, but I don't think that compares.
No, I don't. Miami's open as well.
Right.
So
again, that's probably a little more attractive, but I still don't think it compares.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see how things go on for this situation. There's going to be a lot of speculation, but I really hope they pick the right guy. They really got to pick a guy who knows how to win. When they hired Mike Woodson, I was kind of, I'm a big Knicks fan, so he was coaching. He was a head coach of the Knicks at the time, and bringing him over, I thought he was going to do a pretty solid job. But he never really had that college coaching experience. He only worked at the pro level, and it's definitely a different situation. So, I'm excited to see what they have to do.
Yeah. You guys wouldn't remember this because it happened before you were born, but in the 70s and early 80s, Indiana was the top 5 program in the United States. First would have probably been UCLA, second, North Carolina, probably third, Kentucky, maybe fourth. Yeah, probably Indiana and Kansas would have been close at the time. Bobby Knight was one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport. And he always did more with less. And Bobby Knight had his issues, but that's what really propelled that program. So the list of candidates that I listed, you mentioned some of them, but I think that Indiana still has enough cachet to be considered a top 25, top 30 program. I think the odds have evened out. So like when you talk about Dusty May, is Indiana more attractive than Michigan? Probably not. It's probably about the same. Probably about the same. But most of the guys I listed here, I think it would be an upgrade for them to go to Indiana. And I put Josh Schertz, who's at St. Louis. That team's had a lot of injuries, so their record doesn't look stellar this year. But we know what he did with Indiana State in the prior years. Brad Brunell, what a coach. Always gets the most out of his players. Yeah. Very much like Bobby Knight. He's also a yeller. Also, you mentioned Darren DeVries, West Virginia, I think has done a phenomenal job, especially he hardly has any talent this year, including his son is out for the season. You mentioned Greg McDermott, Dennis Gates. You mentioned Chris Beard. Now that's a Bobby Knight disciple. I think Indiana would be a clear upgrade over Ole Miss, though Ole Miss is building into a really legitimate program. Buzz Williams at Texas A&M. Now there, I don't know, because Texas A&M is huge, so they might have a lot of money, so it might be hard to pry him away. Will Wade, you mentioned, but how about Bryce Drew at Grand Canyon? I mean, he's building a dynasty there.
Hmm.
And so now I know he didn't do well at Vanderbilt, but this is Indiana, and he's also a Midwestern kid. So,
Right.
and then we have Mr. Indiana. At least he was when you thought of the Bobby Knight era, the first player face you thought of was maybe Mike Woodson, maybe Calbert Cheney, or Steve Alford. And Steve Alford's at Nevada. Now, I will say Steve has always done a good job, but not a great job. So I don't know, but he was at UCLA and didn't come through there. I mean, he did good, but not great. But this might be my favorite pick. Chris Collins of Northwestern. And he's a Midwestern kid. He's a former guard. His dad was, an All-American guard, a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. But the one thing that impresses me about Chris Collins is every year I think Northwestern's going to stink because they have no talent. And every year they do better than I think they're going to do. And a lot of the credit, the faces change, but Chris Collins is the guy there. And I really think he gets the most out of his players. I think if you put him at a school like Indiana, he might just be a perfect fit. Joey, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the Chris Collins pick a lot. I think that, Boo Booey's a great player, Barnheiser's a great player, but I don't think that they have those kind of successes elsewhere. I don't think Northwestern has those kind of successes without Collins. And my pick, though, was going to be, which Josh said, was Will Wade. He's just managed to win everywhere. And, at LSU, he kind of got like a scarlet letter almost because there were some, recruiting violations. But even then, LSU was winning. Then he got kind of like exiled to McNeese like Napoleon. But McNeese has been
Yeah,
winning
well,
now
he
too.
definitely did. He definitely did some bad things or cheating type things.
Hmm.
So he deserved to be punished.
Right. But regardless, he's still been succeeding. I hadn't even heard of McNeese, and all of a sudden they were like favorites to, win a game or two last year in March Madness. They're good again this year, so I think
Yep.
he could definitely be a name to consider. The one
Mm.
thing though I will add is I think that I think it's too soon almost to make this list because I think that the names we're going to start seeing real soon are whichever of the McNeeses or the Samfords of the world make these kind of runs in the tournament. I think it could be like a Dusty May situation, like FAU kind of came out of nowhere, and all of
Mhm.
a sudden Dusty May is a hot commodity. So I think that there are going to be, some Cinderellas in this tournament, as there always are. And I think that those coaches are going to be names we're going to start seeing circled around. So I almost think it's a little bit too early.
Well, yeah, but I definitely could see Indiana. I mean, Altzenberger and Greg McDermott. They don't need to do well in the tournament to get this job.
Right.
Right.
I think Indiana is a good chance they're going to have to shell out millions for a buyout,
Mhm.
buy somebody out of their contract. So,
Mhm.
um,
The other thing I wanted to add, though, was I think that some of these guys, like Otzelberger, McDermott, even Buzz Williams, I just don't think they'll leave a team that's been doing really well this year to go to a team that has less talent. Like, yeah, in due time they could build Indiana up, but if they're already succeeding. Like they're already having great seasons. They're set up pretty well
well, see,
for the
that's where
future.
the argument of Indiana, does Indiana still mean what it meant?
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
think
And I think it does. I think
I agree.
I think it does. But some people will just love their situation, just love the town or whatever, and in the administration they won't want to leave.
hmm.
But I think Indiana has probably more cachet than any school on this list.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
There's one coach I would like to add that's on this list. From Texas Tech, Grant McCasland. I think he's done it.
I thought about him. Yeah.
And I think he's done a tremendous job. He's and over there, and he's still youngish. 48 years old.
Yeah.
I think they could definitely look at that guy too. So they've got a lot of options.
Mhm.
So
yeah, McCaslin, he's a real yeller. He gets
he
all
likes the
red in
yelling,
the face, and yeah, so he would remind people of Bobby Knight.
and they would love that. Yeah, no, that's what they honestly they got. I agree though, but I think going for a guy that that has those Bobby Knight tendencies, like that's something that IU fans are looking for. Someone with some determination, and you didn't really get that with Coach Woodson. At times he get a little pissed off about a call or two, and I think he might have been ejected once, but you never really saw him getting super angry or just passionate about the game. And I think that's gonna be big for IU, looking for a guy like that.
Right. Speaking of Joey, going back to what you said about most of these coaches have a good thing going, and I agree. But McDermott, a lot of these schools, Chris Beard, Dennis Gates, Altenberger, Buzz Williams, they're getting, some of their choice picks in terms of freshman recruits and transfer portal, but Creighton doesn't, they usually don't get the they never get a 5-star. They get some 4 stars, but they're usually looking more at 3 stars. And think about this. Ryan Kalkbrenner leaves. McDermott is not going to replace Ryan Kalkbrenner very easily.
That's true.
So yeah, this might be the perfect time to not come calling to Greg McDermott.
Yeah, maybe.
And the other thing, though, is, it may be true that Creighton and Iowa State and all them are, having better seasons, but I at least don't know what the money situation is looking like. If Indiana's able to offer double the salary, then, then you jump shit.
Right. And also, these coaches are also going to consider their NIL situation, which helps them get the best players. So some of these schools might be able to do better than Indiana. Like I said, A&M, Grand Canyon has a load of money because they're not a nonprofit. The Grand Canyon is actually traded on the stock exchange. They're a corporation, so they have tons of money. But we do know that Indiana has more money than Nevada, probably Northwestern and McNeese. So there's some schools on here we know that they have St. Louis. But some schools could definitely probably compete money-wise, like Missouri, Ole Miss, maybe A&M and schools like that. Josh, you had one more story you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and it was kind of you brought it up earlier about Fran McCaffrey, and I think this game was when was it? Might have been yesterday or 2 days ago, and
it was a Wednesday game.
Yeah, Wednesday game. Yeah, so Fran McCaffrey he got pretty emotional over the team road win against Rutgers, and I just wanted to bring to the fact that the team hasn't done very it's been a pretty disappointing season for Iowa, and him getting pretty emotional. I think it was kind of more than just the game. I believe. I think internally he believes that this might be his last season with Iowa, and I just kind of wanted to bring that in as a story. And I think they're going to be looking somewhere else for a coach, and I think as the years go on, Fran McCaffrey's I think he's a pretty solid coach. I think he did a great job with Iowa, bringing in Garza, the Murray twins, and it just doesn't seem that he can really push forward in the tournament. Really,
yeah, he can't get over the hump. His teams can always score, but a lot of times they can't defend. And on the nights that the offense doesn't click, like we've seen happen in the tournament, rough. They're dead.
Yeah, because they've never been with him. They've never really been a good defensive team because they've always lived by the three. And this year it's showing a lot. The team. I'm a big fan of Josh Dix. I think he's done a pretty solid job. This year he had a great game against Rutgers, beating Sanford, obviously. And the injuries, they're piling on, and it's hard. But I just don't see him getting emotional, I think it's definitely more than just, getting their first road win. And it was a good win, a great win. They're down 9 or 10 points at Rutgers, winning by 10, which is, it's great. But I just want to bring the fact that I think it's going to be this last year.
Yeah. Yeah. We've kind of been thinking that since the start of the season.
Yeah.
All right. So our last topic on our notebook is, once again, we're staying in the Big Ten. We're going to talk about the top draft picks in the conference. And right now we have 10 guys in our top 60, meaning they would be, if the draft was started today, we would think that they would be drafted. Of course, a lot of these guys may or may not go into the draft. A lot of them are freshmen and sophomores. There's also 2 other guys that we have just outside the top 60 that are oozing with potential. So I will list them. I'll list a dozen guys who I think are the best top draft prospects in the Big Ten right now. And you guys then can add your thoughts. At number, I'm reading off when I give their number, I'm reading off their number on our big board, which goes all the way to 1,600 and something. But anyway, number 2 on the board is Dylan Harper, Rutgers. Number 3 is Ace Bailey. Number 7 is Kasparis Jokashonis, the combo guard from Illinois. Number 17 is Will Riley, his teammate. 23 is Derek Queen. 30 is Peyton Sanford of Iowa. 36, Kobe Johnson. 37, Danny Wolf. 44, Tomislav Ivasic. Number 55, Jace Richardson. And then at 65, we have Mackenzie Mbako of the forward of Indiana, who's had not made the progress we would like to see, but still oozing with talent. And the same could be said of number 66 on our big board, which is Ade Mara, the big 7'3" center of UCLA, who's really actually started during that winning streak that UCLA had. It was like a 10, 11 game winning streak. Mara really started to get more involved. He really has made progress this year. He's not so much of a pushover in the paint, playing more aggressively and playing with more physicality. But what do you guys make of these 12 guys? And I listed every guy we have like in our top 140 on our draft board. So there's another 20, 30 guys listed here. Probably another 20. But I just didn't want to go through them all. But what do you guys make of this list? Any guys you'd move up, move down? Yeah. Start with you, Joey.
I think right off the bat, list looks pretty good overall. I think maybe I would move up pair of junior guards, Thornton and Braden Smith. I understand they're a little bit older. They probably don't have as much of a ceiling as a lot of the guys ahead of them, but I think they have a much higher floor. I think when you're drafting, you're not drafting every position to be a slam dunk. Sometimes you just want a solid point guard that can, handle the second unit, get you a few buckets, get you a few assists. And I think that those guys can really do that. So I could see them being a little bit higher, maybe towards the 50s range, being like a late second round pick.
Right. I had a source recently tell me that they thought Bruce Thornton was going to come back next year because he's not drawing the NBA interest, not drawing a lot of NBA interest right now.
Right.
That surprised me because I agree with you. I think Bruce Thornton can play in the NBA. Braden Smith, I'm a little worried about because of his size, but damn, at least as an offensive weapon, I think he definitely could be a nice offensive spark plug. But the kid's like 6 foot, and I'm worried about that. But I hear you. I love Braden Smith's game. He's tough. He's clever. He's just passes well, shoots well, makes great decisions, but physically, can he match up? And then, I've always wondered if you're in his shoes, if you go over to EuroLeague and be a star and play every night versus, sitting in the NBA and maybe getting, 10 minutes a night, which would you rather do? Personally, I'd rather take less money and play every night, but
Yeah.
I'd want to play, but yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Josh, about the list?
I'm pretty high on Derek Queen, actually. I think he's done a really great job working with Julian Reese. He can really stretch the floor for them. I think his playmaking ability is, I was watching a little bit in high school, Mountain Bird Academy, and he wasn't really, playmaking so much because he got, Cooper Flagg, Mason Newell, all these guys, and like he was more like post, high low guy, gets the free throw line, but the playmaking I'm seeing is tremendous from him, and that's huge in the NBA, and like I have him, I think he's going to be a top 10 pick in this upcoming draft.
Okay.
So I'm pretty high on him. I think he's going to do really well in the NBA. I'm also pretty high on Danny Wolf. I see a lot of flashes. I really resembling the game of I'm seeing a lot of Franz Wagner from him. He's obviously a little bigger than him. But Franz, 6'10" guy. Against fadeaway jumpers, playmaking ability. Good footwork, and I think as these games go on, as the March Madness goes on, I think he's going to have to do a tremendous ability to really do well in the tournament. And for a guy like I'm not super high on a guy like Jace Richardson, a little small for my size. I think he's a tremendous player though, shooting wise. I think he's probably shooting wise, Michigan State's not great, but probably one of the better shooters on the team, and getting to the rack, I think does a tremendous job. But I do think, this is going to be a very packed draft. I think there's going to be a lot of talent coming into this draft, and maybe holding off on one more year, I think, and I don't know if he's going to go into the draft or, but he's had a great year so far, but I'm not super high on him. And I think Yaki Sonis is going to be a top 5 pick as well. I think he's done an outstanding job. I see a lot of, I'm not saying, Luka Doncic, but, I definitely see some flashes of that. He played overseas as well. So, he's done a tremendous job at Illinois, and yeah.
What about Yakishonis versus Demon? Do you have an opinion there right now?
It's kind of hard because I think Igor, he's gotten a little injured at times too. He's been, he's a little hurt. I think the situation for Yakishonis is better than Igor Demon. And the talent around him is tremendous. I think Big T's been great. Will Riley, Morris Johnson, and for Igor, it's kind of rough at times. And I watched BYU in a little bit of their game, and they haven't really been some tremendous for me. I think Cannon Catchings he's done a pretty good job, good solid minutes from him. But
we have him about 45 on our board.
Mm-hmm. And it's been kind of hard for Igor, but I do think there's obviously tremendous upside for him. I think definitely a first round lottery pick for sure. But it's gonna be interesting to see how these two guys match up in the NBA.
Yeah. Agreed. And Yakishonis has the luxury of playing with Big T, who's a great pick and roll player because he can pop, he can roll, he can short roll, and UCLA BYU doesn't have a center.
They don't got that guy.
Yeah, they don't have that guy. So yeah, it's I think when you watch them, Yakishonis has looked better, has been more productive, but Demon, man, it's kind of like that Ace Bailey feel you get. Everything's smooth, and he makes these really difficult passes and difficult shots, and he's got Yakishonis by at least 2, maybe 4 inches. So that's going to come into play. They both seem pretty athletic. I think it's close. I wish BYU team was set up a little differently, because I think the pick and roll is going to be his baby, and they really don't have
they don't got a guy like that.
They don't have the ideal center to play that. All right. So that ends up our notebook, and we're gonna roll the interview that Joey and I did with Micah Parrish earlier today. And as I said, Micah has been red hot. And I don't know if you noticed this, Joey, but when we first worked it out with Ohio State to interview him, that's when his hot streak began.
Maybe that's
He
why.
he has been inspired about coming on Hoops Prospects podcast, and yeah, it's been a bona fide boost for him. Our special guest today is Ohio State fifth-year wing Micah Parrish. Last season at San Diego State, Micah ranked in the top 20 of the Mountain West for plus-minus defensive rating, defensive win shares, and steals. This season with the Buckeyes, he's averaging 12.5 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and 1 point steals per game while shooting 46 from the floor, 37% from three, and 79% from the free throw line. Micah, welcome to the show today. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's Micah, by the way, too.
Oh, Micah. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
All right. Glad you corrected me on that. And I assume you and Joey being on the same campus, Ohio State only has what, about 50, 60,000 students. So you guys must bump into each other a lot, right?
Something like that.
All right. So you come to Ohio State with a reputation as a 3-and-D rotational guy, but you've been a lot more than that for the Buckeyes. You know, you're hitting career highs in most of your categories, and you're playing more than 30 minutes per game. Is that something you expected, you know, when you're joining a big university? You know, not to say the San Diego State wasn't, but you know, the Big Ten, I still think is a jump up. Is it something you expected to be this involved in doing this well?
Yeah, no doubt. Like credit to San Diego State. Man, we had some great teams, great players on the teams that was really talented. So it was some stuff you had to sacrifice. So I had to sacrifice a lot of my game at San Diego State to complement winning, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I left, I know I can go somewhere and show my true capabilities as I'm doing right now, and I even got a little bit more to show I can do. So, man, I'm just blessed to be in this position.
Right. So 2 years ago, you know, the Aztecs reached the national championship game. You lost it to Connecticut. Last year, too, you got knocked out by Connecticut in the second round, right?
Yeah, Sweet 16.
Yeah. And so what were some of the most memorable things about your NCAA experiences? And is there anything in particular that really stands out to you, especially, you know, with that championship run?
Just the guys, we was so close together. The team camaraderie was so good. So man, that was probably my favorite thing about it because we all loved each other. We all played hard for each other. So that was like my favorite thing about it.
Okay. Um, and you know, what has been the biggest difference from coming from San Diego State to Ohio State on and off the court?
Definitely the weather.
Yeah.
It's so cold, man. It's so cold. The weather's getting me, but um, like you said earlier, it's just definitely a different level. Definitely a bigger university, almost 60,000. Where San Diego State was what 20 something, 30 almost. So, man, that's still a good amount, but like it's definitely just a bigger environment.
You know, San Diego State is known, you know, for their, you know, rabid fan base, but Ohio State also has a reputation for having great fans. In fact, somebody was in your last game, great Osborne was getting into it with the fans. So, you know, how would you compare the fan bases in playing, you know, at San Diego State and versus playing at the experience of being on the court?
Yeah, San Diego State they have amazing fans, one of the best fans in the nation. But Ohio State they have a great fan base as well. So I've just been blessed to be able to come to two great programs and have great fan bases for how long I've been playing. So man, I'm just blessed to have that.
Okay, I'm going to kick it over to Joey.
Hey, Micah. So you've been on a really hot stretch as of late, scoring 18 plus points in 5 of your last 8 games, including 30 versus Nebraska. What do you think has been the difference lately?
I just have to turn my game up. I know we're on the edge of the tournament right now, and I'm just trying to make sure we get to the tournament. So I'm just trying to do whatever to help the team win and get to the tournament.
Right. And the whole team really has been shooting the ball really well, leading the Big Ten in 3-point percentage. And at the same time, y'all lead the conference in 3-point percentage defensively. As a team, where do you think the coaches would like to see you improve down the stretch?
Oh, well, we just got to keep getting stops. That's our main focus. We can't let up. We got to put our foot down. When we have leads, sometimes we have leads. We don't really enforce it as much as we should. So that's something we just got to do. But it's a learning process with a young team that we have here. Um, once we get up, we got to make sure we put our foot down, like I said. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Gotcha. And big game coming up on Sunday, rivalry matchup against Michigan, team with two really good 7-footers. Given the problems that Michigan can cause with their size, how are you guys approaching that game?
I mean, yeah, this is a big one for us. We need this. We need this game for because we're at home. Honestly, it's a home game. It's a big rivalry game. They have a great team this year. They're ranked. It's things that goes into this game, but man, we just got to be ourselves going into this game, and I feel like we get the win.
With the Big Ten tournament coming and March Madness should be following that, ESPN right now has you as a 9 seed. What do you guys think you need to do to make a deep run? And I guess more specifically, you talked about this, you mentioned it, but where do you see untapped potential on this younger team? You're one of the older guys, but a lot of the guys around you are underclassmen, and Bruce is only a junior. So where do you see, it may be something you see in practice, but you're not quite clicking on the court in that area. So where do you think you can improve to make a deep run in March?
Just have the killer instinct. That's probably the biggest thing. When to make a deep run in March, you have killer instinct, where it's whether you got to get 3 stops in a row to finish out the game, or where you need to go on a 10-0 run and hit shots and during tough times. So that's probably the biggest thing our team needs right now. But like I said, over time it comes, and I feel like right now we're on the upwards to having that.
And do the guys kind of lean on you for, do they ask you about, what it took, with those San Diego State teams, to get as far as you did? Do they ask you for advice? I mean, you're the OG on the team.
Yeah, all the guys on teams really had come to me for advice and things like that throughout the year and asking how it was and stuff like that. And I always tell them like we can make it, we can make it, we can make it. We just got to keep grinding. And I feel like each body on the team look to me as a leader. So um, I've been just trying to lead the best that I can.
Right. Getting off the team for a second, just looking back on your whole career, of all the players you've gone up against, who has been the hardest to guard and who has impressed you the most? So it might not be somebody that you matched up with, but you were like, damn, that guy is good.
All right. It was the kid from Arizona, 4-man back in Maui 2 years ago. I forget his name. Tabellus.
Right. Azilis Tabellus?
Yeah, he was really good. He was really good. That was somebody that I didn't know who it was, but like, he was really good to me. I feel like he made that whole team who he was. So yeah, he was somebody that caught my eye. And then um it's a couple more guys, but he was one of the guys that it was one guy I played with, Jamal King. He surprised me every day.
Oh, Marquette.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys played in Oakland together.
Yeah, we play one. Oh, he was somebody that surprised me every day. So I got to play with somebody like that, and then I got to see go against somebody like that every day in practice. So that's probably about 2.
Right.
And on a more lighthearted note, of all the guys in Ohio State, who do you think is the funniest and who's on Ox?
I'm on Aux, so I don't really know who else can really be on Aux. Funniest. Oh no, I don't know who else. I'll probably get the AB.
Mm.
I'll probably get the AB.
What are some of your favorite things to do outside of basketball?
I watch Animal Planet. I like going to the zoo. That's I do a lot of things. I go to movies all the time. Just little stuff like that.
What kind of movies do you like?
I just watched the Captain America, the new Captain
Oh,
America movie.
right, right.
That was pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah.
But I watch a lot of movies and shows, so that's what I do.
And I know you want to focus on the present season still going on, but your college career is nearing the end. What are your plans for after the season?
Well, hopefully, God can bless me with the opportunity to play in the NBA. That's always been my goal as a kid. Being there, playing there, having a long career there. So that's something I'm really trying to do.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned animals. Do you have a dog or a cat?
Yeah, I got two dogs, named Cookie and Coco.
What kind of dogs?
Two boxers. One is a European boxer.
Ah, cool. I have a Great Pyrenees mix. He's actually mostly pit, but he has a Great Pyrenees body, but a pit head, kind of
Okay,
unusual
I
looking.
gotta see a picture of it.
Yeah, come here, Mook. Mook.
Let me see.
He's right here on the floor, but he won't move. As Joey said, I know you're focusing now on now. But when your career is over your career, have you received any NBA feedback? And if so, what did they tell you?
I did a little bit. I did a little bit here and there, but it hasn't really been like a great amount of feedback. I've just been trying to work on my game each year, each summer, try to keep getting better and better each year to show off my game.
Right. Well, your size, you're 6'6", what, about 200, 210?
215 now.
Okay, great. So you got great ideal size, you got the shot, you got the perimeter D. I think you have a great chance. So where was I going with this? I know what I wanted to ask you. This year is weird because they stopped the COVID thing. They stopped the fifth year thing. I know it's probably too early and you haven't probably heard about this. I was just wondering, things that Portsmouth, who always invites the top seniors in the country, and you should be in that group. But the group's going to be huge this year. I wonder if Portsmouth is thinking about expanding. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything, but I haven't thought about it like that because this was last year the COVID. So that is a good question right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost going to be twice as many seniors as usual. All right. Well, we'll worry about that later. All right, Micah, I want to thank you for joining us, and I wish you and the team the best for the remainder of the season. And please, if you can find the time, please come back and visit us through the draft process and let us know how you're doing.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys for having me.
All right,
Thanks, Micah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so. It's a great interview with Micah, and hope to talk to him later on when he's going through the draft process. And now for our final segment today, and we're gonna what we wanted to be doing this weekly, but of course, as I said, we've had a hiatus here. But this year we were going to try something different with our picks of the week, and basically make a few picks each against the spread. We'll keep track of our record, and then the winner at the end of the season, I don't know. We'll get a HP coffee mug or T-shirt of their choice.
There we go.
I'll read off my picks, and I'm going to go with, these are all Saturday games. So I like St. Joe's plus 4.5 at George Mason. I think St. Joe's is really been underachieving because they're inconsistent. George Mason, on the other hand, leads the A10, and I think they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. I really do. I mean, I don't think this team really has a lot of talent. It's more of a team-oriented, good, gritty defensive approach. So I'm going to say St. Joe's, gets a key win here, and George Mason starts to fall back into the pack because I just don't think they have the talent to stay on top of the A10 for the remainder of the year. Then in a big number 1 versus number 2 matchup, Auburn at Alabama, I'm going to take Alabama minus the 1.5. Not in love with this, but, I couldn't ignore this game. I think Alabama's going to win it. I think they're probably tired of hearing how good Auburn is, and they're already rivals. They're at home, so I'm going to go with Alabama. And then lastly, I like Kentucky plus 1.5 at Texas. Texas has been somewhat of a disappointing team for me, where Kentucky just seems to, no matter how many players are hurt, they just pick another guy off the bench and he just plugs in and he starts knocking down threes. So Texas really isn't clicking. Kentucky continues to roll. Problem with Kentucky is defense. So this could be a shootout, but I like Kentucky. Actually, are they getting 1.5? Do I have that right? I think they are getting
the plus 1.5.
Yeah, which I'm surprised, because I think Kentucky's going to win this one. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, so I got 3 picks. My first pick, I got Mizzou minus 1.5 at Georgia. I think Mizzou is just a better team than Georgia. They've been playing some really good ball as of late. Indiana transfer, my guy Tamar Bates, has been playing really well. Mark Mitchell's been playing really well. Caleb Grill, and I think they're gonna focus their defensive point on Asa Newell. The offense kind of runs through him in a sense, and make the other guys make some plays. Blue Kane. I just think Mizzou's just a better team than Georgia, so I got them winning that game. My second pick, I got which I'm on the fence a little bit, but they've been playing really good ball.
No, I thought about this next one.
Yeah, and Clemson minus 4.5 at Florida State, and Florida State, not a great team. They've been the lower echelon of the ACC, which it's not great basketball to watch. But Clemson coming off two great wins. Beat Duke at home. They absolutely obliterated North Carolina at home. It's a disappointing performance from UNC. And, I think they're going to continue rolling against FSU. I think Chase Hunter is going to have a tremendous game. Ian Shefflin, Victor Laughlin, he's been tremendous for Clemson. They get the shots going. They're a big shooting team. So I think they'll end up getting, winning by at least 5. So, and then my last pick, instead of taking the 1.5, I'm just going to take the money line plus 105 at Texas. I got Kentucky winning that game. I think, as you said, Rich, I think Kentucky's just the better team. Texas does not look great whatsoever. It's kind of hard. Trey Johnson's been a great player for Texas. I think he'll top 10 pick, Arthur Kaluma, but I just think Kentucky's offense is just too much for Texas.
Yeah, those freshmen in Kentucky, you've been playing Noah and and the other kid, I forget his name. They were like 2 of the top 5 leading scorers in the state of Kentucky's history, and they came in the other night against Tennessee, and they're knocking down threes.
Insane.
These guys have hardly played all season,
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I love Missouri. They're a dark horse.
Great.
A Final Four.
They're a great team.
They are a serious team, and they're deep, deep and athletic. All right, Joey, what do you got?
So, Rich, just like you, I got Alabama as well, the minus 1.5 against Auburn. Everyone loves Auburn. I'm a little bit lower on them. I think Auburn and Tennessee are actually going to struggle a little bit once they get into March Madness. I am all in on the Nate Oates philosophy. I trust Mark Sears. I trust Grant Nelson. They have great shooters around. They're going to be hitting threes. So I think they're going to win that one. And then I have Houston minus 1.5 at Arizona. As long as it's not one of the 5 games where Caleb Love decides to become 2022 Caleb Love, we should be fine. Sharp and Cryer will be able to lock him up and also get enough buckets. And Houston's so good defensively, and Arizona struggles so much outside of Caleb Love anyway that I think Houston's just going to lock them down. And then my last pick, I have Mississippi State plus 5.5 at Ole Miss. You guys know this. In Josh Hubbard, I trust. He's been playing better as of late. He's a guy for the big moments. We saw this against Kentucky last year, and there's a big game on the road against a good Ole Miss team, and I'm riding with my boy Josh Hubbard.
All right, good. Yeah. Good job, guys. All righty, so that wraps up the show for today. As always, I want to say, if you have a question for the mailbag, now that we're going to be back doing the show weekly again, we hope we're going to try to be on here every week. We will answer your questions about college basketball or anything. I don't know, about taking care of dogs, whatever you want to ask us. So we take those questions via social media, on Twitter at Hoops Prospects, on Instagram at The Hoops Prospects, and on Facebook at Hoops Pros. Also, we take questions via email at admin@hoopsprospects.com. And I always, as always, I want to thank our listeners, and I want to thank our special guest, Micah Parrish, for joining us. If you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. We'll be back next week with a new college notebook, new picks of the week, and another special guest. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Go Hoosiers tonight. Let's go Hoosiers.
All right. Who do they play tonight?
UCLA.
Oh, that'd be a tough one.
It'd be a good game. So
Yeah.
hopefully get the job done.
It'd be interesting to see Ballo and Mara. Mara didn't play much when UCLA lost.
Yeah.
Is that Illinois?
I think so. Yeah.
UCLA's last game. He didn't play much. I was surprised. Yeah, it was Illinois, because I thought it'd be interesting to see Tomislav go against Mara, and he hardly played in that game. So wonder if they're going to try him against.
Maybe.
Because UCLA really doesn't. He's the only center. Mara's really the only center on the roster. They've been using Bilodeau.
Bilodeau,
Yeah, who's really come on this year, and he looks like a legit pro prospect. All right.
I agree.
Any final thoughts, Joey?
Let's go Bucks. Let's see if we can beat that team up north on Sunday.
Yeah. All righty, folks. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.